Item number 16, professional services agreement with Atkins and MBK Engineering for urban level of flood protection determination.
So in 2008, the state enacted Senate Bill 5, which was the Central Valley Flood Protection Act of 2008. And so with that, it requires that Central Valley agencies prepare general plan amendments by July of 2015, zoning code amendments by July of 2016, in order to be able to continue with development. So that's issuance of any entitlements, that's issuance of basically new building permits. And the reason for that is the Department of Water Resources prepared 200-year floodplain maps recently, and with that, they assume that basically the city is not protected by levees, because right now our levees do not meet 200-year level flood protection. So here's a map showing the results of DWR's mapping process, and as you can see, the entire sphere is in blue, which means that currently we would be considered to be within the 200-year floodplain. So with that, under SB 5, we need to have a urban level protection determination to show how we can proceed forward with development outside of the 200-year floodplain. What we're proposing to do is hire Atkins to prepare the general plan amendment, zoning code updates, and CEQA analysis associated with that urban level protection designation, and hire MBK engineers to prepare new flood maps for the city, assuming that Civivca's project is completed. And so those maps would reflect 200 those properties that are outside of the 200-year floodplain, which it's anticipated that much of Yuba City today would be outside of the 200-year floodplain, but some portions of the sphere would still be within the 200-year floodplain. MBKs would have the maps completed by March of 2015. Atkins would have the general plan amendment completed by July 2015, and then move into the zoning code updates by July of 2016. So this is very critical to the city's ability to develop into the future. Cost is Atkins' proposal is $163,837, and I'm requesting $15,000 contingency. MBK is $79,740 plus $10,000 contingency. And with that, I'm requesting that the finance director be authorized to make a supplemental appropriation of $300,000 from the levy impact fee that's been collected as part of new development to pay for these specific services, as it will directly impact new development.
Questions? Yes, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. So this is the maps were already drawn by Civivca for their project, but this is kind of like a second opinion to find out if those are actually accurate for our urban area. Is that a fair way to put this?
It's a fair way to put it. Since Civivca prepared their maps, there have been newer models developed. We feel like the newer models will have a better outcome for the city. The other thing is Civivca's maps assume that there's a 3-foot surcharge over the surcharge of water over the levee at the south end of the basin. And so with that, that's impacting, of course, water levels within Yuba City and the city sphere. Part of MBK's process and Atkins' process would be to try to work with the state to remove that 3-foot weir surcharge, because then that basically lowers the water surface elevation by 3 feet, which positively impacts the city. And so we feel that by using the new model, working with the state, we can have a better directed outcome for the city and the sphere.
So given their model, a 3-foot overtopping of the levee on the south portion is kind of unrealistic from the reality that it wouldn't sustain that at that level and back up into the city, because most likely the levee would be gone if we had 3 feet of water going over top of that levee at that point.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
All right, thank you.
Dan, have we, just out of curiosity, since if this is, Civivca's already done their flood mapping, and if this is a different way and it benefits the city, have we talked about sharing the cost with Civivca if this is a better map?
We've talked to Civivca about the city preparing these maps. This really directly benefits the city.
Right.
in terms of Sabifka's project, their project's going to proceed forward regardless. So to keep it truly separate, since it's a direct benefit to the city, we propose to use the impact fees that have been collected to fund this.
And will this map override Sabufka's map?
Yes.
Okay.
This will be submitted to DWR as part of the urban level protection findings that we have to make to show that we are meeting the 200-year level of flood protection.
Okay. Through the mayor. Yes.
Doesn't Sabufka have to certify a 200-year floodplain protection for the urban area with their project? And if so, wouldn't they benefit from this study also?
I don't believe, and maybe I'm going to look to Sean because Sean has had some involvement with Sabufka, Sean Menard of MHM. I don't know that Sabufka has to certify that the urban areas meeting the 200-year level flood protection. They have to certify that the levees meet the 200-year level, and which is two different things.
All right.
So, and really what's impacting the city, it's not so much the West Feather River levee, it's more Sutter Bypass.
Sutter Bypass and internal. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Diana.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
And this also deals with while Sabufka is working on this, in case we like Lincoln East specific plan, if we want to develop that to comply with SB 5.
Yes.
Sabufka, that I don't know what we're looking at, 2017,
Did you get the job completed?
and
2015.
have the levy certified for 200-year flood protection.
Yeah, if we get the funding on it, should be majority of it completed next year.
Yes, 2015.
The mapping should still
Mhm.
to get the levy certified for 200-year flood protection. In the meanwhile, if we wanted to annex anything and develop anything, it has to be 200-year flood protection.
And that's part of the ULOP determination process, is that you can have a project that's in process of construction and you submit that as part of the findings as to how you're going to meet the flood protection.
Any questions else? I've got Pat Miller who wishes to speak on this item.
Pat Miller, Yuba City. When I looked at this, I thought, okay, we have documents all over the place that fulfill the requirement of SB 5 and what is it, AB, whatever it is, 160. And it seems to me like this is a major duplication of effort. That those documents are out there, those studies are out there, they've been prepared, they've been submitted to numerous agencies, and we're going to have 200-year protection either next year or the year after. Hopefully it'll be next year if we can get over the few hurdles that are out there. And Yuba City is part of Sabufka. Why not use those studies? Are we spending $300,000 in hopes of a better answer? Or it just seems ridiculous that we are doing that when the documents are there. The city has all the municipal code updates, the general plan amendments, all the information on that is right here in the city. So would you guys think about asking the state for a waiver and just supply the existing documents? That would save taxpayers about $300,000, and I'd appreciate it if you would look at that.
Thank you, Pat. And I think myself as the incoming chairman and Vice Mayor Dukes is on the committee as well, representing the city's interests. We did look into this. And I think after visiting with Diane on this matter, you're taking a look at an urban area that at this point in time, obviously with Sabufka, you're going to have a 200-year flood protection, but not in the urban areas. Okay, right now we're still working on trying to so-call that J levee to ring levee. It doesn't cover the Sutter Bypass area at this point in time.
Did you say urban areas or rural?
Rural,
thought
as
you
far
said
as south,
urban.
we're talking about,
I
yeah.
thought you said urban.
Yeah, rural,
So
rural areas.
Yeah, because
so
we
if-
will have the 200-year protection in Yuba City and Live Oak and Gridley.
Right. If
Yeah.
this, and anybody who's involved in flood maps will tell you, is that since we've been working on Sabufka, we've had 2-3 different elevations of flood maps that said this one's better. No, this one's worse. No, this
So
one,
now we'll have a third one.
well, and I think from our standpoint of view is we've got to do what we think. Obviously, we are representing, the two of us are representing the city's interest on Sabufka. But in this particular case, we've got to do what's best for the residents of the city of Yuba City. And if
I would
that's,
think saving money would be high on that priority list.
if we can get, if this is a better better flood protection in the sense of telling us what we need to do, we can get stuff done sooner, and it could save even taxpayers even more money.
A better flood protection than what Sabufka is going to provide.
Well, if you're talking about a 3-foot wall coming over the levee, okay, and this flood map shows you that may not be the case. So you've got a better map showing the hydrology of the flow of the water. And I think that's what Diana was talking about.
So we're going to spend $300,000 to see if we could get a better deal.
Yeah.
Through the mayor. Diana, is this something you could address? Thank you.
And I think I need to make one point of clarification. So, 163,837,000 plus $15,000 contingency is for the Atkins contract. This is required through SB5 that we, for the preparation of the general plan amendments, zoning code update, CEQA analysis. Staff has met with DWR multiple times about the process and how we go about implementing that process. And we reached out to Atkins because they basically prepared the document for DWR as to how to get there. And so from an efficiency standpoint, knowledge, we felt Atkins was the best consultant to move forward with because they have the most intimate knowledge of the requirements. And regardless if we use Sabufka's maps, different maps, we would still have to go through that process no matter what. And Sabufka would not go through that process for us. We as a city have to follow that process because we've been identified as an agency that needs to comply with this SB5 requirement. In terms of the maps, the $79,740, we feel like with the development of the newer model and hydrology, that it is going to have a better outcome for the city to be able to show that the Sabufka's project, the levee improvements, will result in a 200-year level flood protection for a greater area, which gives us then the ability to allow issuance of building permits, entitlements, which benefits the citizens of the city. And then also, to note that this is being funded through the levy impact fee paid by new development and directly benefits new development.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
With the current maps that Sabufka has done, we still have an area in southwest Yuba City which is out of the 200-year protection. Is that correct?
We have an area in the southwestern sphere, and then also in the southern part of the city and sphere.
And it has nothing to do with the West Feather River project, because what that would be is if something happened on the bypass and flooded that rural area south of Yuba City and it backed up against the levee south of Sacramento Avenue, that again, that map is assuming a 3-foot wall of water above the levee height, which causes it to back up into that southwest area of town.
Even more.
But it's a flawed model, because that would never happen, because if you had that much water going over the levee, it would wash the levee out and it would never back up to that southwest area of town. So by having these new maps that are done on better information, it's going to show that that area is not out of the protection of 200-year. Most likely. It may be potentially.
There might still be some areas.
But the point being is that will help for flood insurance in those areas of town also. For people that are going to be, if they are mapped in under the current maps, they're going to be paying higher insurance in the future.
And without completing this process, then we will not be able to issue a new building permit? Is that?
Right. So we're specifically restricted without complying with SB5 and showing how we're going to meet urban level flood protection. we cannot process entitlements, new residential building permits, things like that. One thing I want to note on the flood insurance, that's related to the FEMA
Correct.
maps in the 100-year level for
They
flood
won't
protection, which is
affect
a little
it,
bit
yeah.
different than this.
Great, thank you, Diana.
Mr. Dukes, I'd like to have you clarify to me how 3 feet of water coming over the levee would be worse than a levee break that would allow all of that water to come over and it would back up into Yuba City. That didn't make sense. Sorry.
Well, like I said, the model is that the water level would be 3 feet over top of the current levee at the south end of the basin.
Okay. And then you said if it,
and that would be because of a break in the Sutter bypass or somewhere north of that area, which caused the water to back up in that bowl south of in the rural area.
but if you had a break down there of the levee, it's going to back up. It's going to back up.
Well, it does. That depends. If the level of the Feather River was lower than the levee at that time, because the break was north on the Sutter bypass, the water would drain down into that area.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of water being 3 feet over the top of that levee is nearly impossible.
Okay, which levee are you talking about, the 3 feet over?
That would be at south of Sacramento. It's where the river turns, the Feather River turns.
Okay.
And it's south of our project. The project goes down to Laurel Avenue.
Right.
It'd be south of that.
Well, in every discussion that I have heard and witnessed on that, the indication is if it breaks down in South Sutter County, it will back up into it could very well back up into the Yuba City area. I'm just saying that's what I've heard, and I've gone to a lot of meetings.
Through the mayor, I think this is the levee where we wanted to break because they're saying this levee is holding the water from leaving South Sutter County, and not only it's holding it 3 feet above the levee, which is hard for us to comprehend that a levee can hold the water 3 feet above. And then we're saying is that it's going to just wash out that levee. As you go further south, the area's elevations are lower. That we cannot have water 3 feet above the levee. We're going to have the levee's going to.
I think that's kind of hard to do. Yeah.
That water is actually going to be lower.
Yeah.
The levee's going to break. So this is the levee we would want it to break if that was the case.
Yeah, and they've talked about that. They've talked about a deliberate mechanism to punch that levee open if necessary.
Try to do that in 97 in South Yuba County. Try to do that with the Bear River, so the water would leave.
Okay.
And Pat, just let me just answer that for you. You just said that that's good, but that's why this study that we're going to invest $80,000 toward takes that assumption that has been expressed up here of the 3 foot overtopping. It takes and reduces that assumption so Yuba City doesn't get the depth of water nor the geographical coverage. So is it important? It's $80,000. I get it.
Yeah, well, it's $300,000 for both of them.
But we have to have, listening to Diana, reading the report, we have to have that for SB5. The first part of this is required for SB5 to be compliant.
And my request of you in question is, have you asked for a waiver from that SB5 requirement by producing all the studies that have been done, and there are extensive studies. That why do we have to go and do more? That's my question.
Thank you.
Well, I would think to answer that question is because of the study that we currently have shows that we would be in a flood position based on that study. And so that's what we're trying to rectify.
Thank you. Okay, what's the pleasure of the council on this motion?
I'll move for approval of the item.
Okay, got a motion?
Second that.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.